The Indianapolis Colts just finished their first preseason game on Thursday, losing to the Ravens 24-16. So how did the squad perform? What updates have taken the news headlines from training camp since then? And how do you, the fans, feel about the team heading into the second preseason game of the year against the Green Bay Packers on Saturday? Well, let's talk about it. Welcome to the Horseshoe Huddle Podcast, as always presented by Indianapolis Colts on SI.com. I'm Drake Wally, co-deputy editor for the site, co-host of the show, and then, of course, joined by Noah Gebert, analyst for the site, fellow co-host of the Horseshoe Huddle. Noah, we finally were able to see some football, not football that matters, but given what this team is going through with injuries, with a quarterback competition that could make or break the entire season, I mean, it was a pretty big game. We got a lot to unpack here. But how you doing, man? This is your first time as the co-host of the show talking about an actual Colts football game. How you feeling?
Yeah, I think we'll use the word actual here pretty lightly in this sense. It did feel like while we were watching this, it just felt a little bit off. But I mean, when you've been starved for football for so long, you're really going to take anything you get, even if it is Riley Leonard out there for as long as he was out there going against the third and fourth team from the Ravens. So, I'm glad we're talking about something. I'm glad we got something like a product on the field. Unhappy with a lot of the product that we saw on the field, but of course there's going to be some good things and there's going to be some bad things from every game. So this is a good opportunity to go through what we liked, what we didn't like, and then go over some of the other updates that have happened since then.
Yeah, and you're excited about a lot of things. Okay, it's not all doom and gloom. It's not all bad, but overall it was a pretty shaky performance. But you're kind of expecting that to a degree. But yeah, I think that when you look at it from a whole, you were kind of hoping that things were maybe operating a little bit better. But we have a lot to talk about. First off, Nathan Comanci says, sorry, I've been missing your shows. The Colts are becoming very thin at corner. We're going to get to that. Thanks for joining. Of course, Donald, as always, Teresa, and Tony, you guys are the GOATs. And as people get in here, we're just going to keep on talking. We have training camp to cover, updates, and the game. So we're going to try to pack all that into an hour. And knowing me and Noah, that's not going to happen. So, but yeah, we'll just go ahead and start off with something that kind of to Nate's point, massive loss. And I felt terrible for this kid, but the Justin Wally ACL tear, you're not always looking at a rookie like, okay, you're starter, you're an important piece of this team when they haven't even set foot on a field. But Justin Wally is different, Noah, because he was not only showing out at camp before injuries started plaguing this team, but he was a starter. He was an actual starter out there on the outside. He was, then down goes Jones, down goes Brents. All of a sudden you're looking at Wally like you were already a starter. Now you're definitely a starter. And then this happens. Tell me a little bit about this because, your feelings, because I just think not only does it continue to decimate this corner room, but it just sucks because his trajectory was off the charts.
Yeah, it's a room that was completely flipped when Lou Anarumo took over, brought in Charvarius Ward, brought in Justin Wally, went out and signed Chris Lamons. You got a couple undrafted guys battling for some position in there. I mean, they went and they changed that DB room, and you felt really good about that going into camp. With all the strong performances that you had out of Justin Wally, you were thinking, okay, maybe he's a little bit more in play for that starter job than we thought. We thought it was going to be a pretty fair competition between at least Jalen Jones and Justin Wally going in. Then we start camp and Justin Wally's out there with the first team for all three of the first three practices and then continues that while they rotate guys like Juju Brents and Jalen Jones in. So you're like, okay, well, maybe this is even better than we thought in the summer when he was having those good days. He's actually in play for a starting position, and that the proof is in the pudding that they're putting him out there with the first team unit during actual training camp live reps. So then you have those injuries to Jalen Jones. You have the injury to Juju Brents, both those guys that were kind of competing for that spot. And you're like, okay, just by default, it looks like Justin Wally's going to be the outright starter, win this competition. And I think people were kind of accepting that and getting excited about that. I know he wasn't the most popular draft pick when they brought him around because maybe there was some thoughts that the Colts reached a little bit in grabbing him and there were some other positions that they could have addressed at that spot. But I mean, yeah, he just came in from day one and was impressing coaches left and right and doing it consistently. It wasn't just like he was having these hot days. He was having just consistent showings where the coaches would just gain more and more trust in him. And so, yeah, it looked like he was going to be that outright starter. They were going to rely on him super heavily. And then, yeah, just out of nowhere, that ACL tear ends his season before it even starts, which, you're starting to Nathan's point, that just the cornerback room in general, you felt so good about it for a certain point there. You were worried a little bit maybe about what Juju Brents could be, but you were like, hey, Jalen Jones, we know is the guy, or it can be a guy on the outside. Justin Wally looks like he's definitely battling. Justin Wally's gone for the season. Juju Brents isn't out there battling right now. Jalen Jones, same, sideline with an injury. And you're like, playing guys named Alex Johnson and Jonathan Edwards and people that you've never heard of, like as legit starters at this point in training camp, which is super worrisome. And we'll get to some of those guys because I think a couple of those guys showed up pretty well, and we'll talk about them in the good and the bad section we're going to do for the preseason game. But yeah, just decimating in terms of those injuries to that DB room, and it's crazy to go from where you were, like just kind of a roller coaster of how depleted you were before the offseason began. Then you get all these additions and you're finally starting to feel good about it. And now it's completely decimated again. At least you have Kenny Moore and Charvarius Ward. I mean, that there's a Kenny Moore injury we got to update also, so we'll see where that's at, but it doesn't seem like it's going to be too serious. But yeah, at least you have those guys on the field for the most part. And you probably expect those guys to be there for week one to solidify some of that. But man, everything else seems like you're throwing some names out there that you'd be hard pressed to find some people in Indianapolis that can name them.
Yeah, and it's just a real shame because you had so much that you loved. I mean, about Justin Wally, and like you mentioned, yes, there was a bunch of. I mean, even us on the show, like we're not out of the realm to admit it. That we were like, what are you doing, picking this guy in the third round? And I've said it a bunch. I thought they needed a defensive tackle, and then this guy goes out there and starts showing exactly why he was taken, not day three. And it just, let's just say it really sucks because it would have been fun to see what he could do in Anarumo's scheme. I think Anarumo had a play in the Colts taking a swing on Justin Wally. And, it's now you're bringing in guys like Duke Shelley. You're bringing in guys like Trey Herndon, guys like Alex Johnson, who, by the way, had a damn good game against the Ravens. Now they're going to get starting reps, and along with Sam Womack. Right now, our own Zach Hicks put that meme or that video of Will Smith from the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air when he walks into the house and there's no furniture. It's just an empty living room, and he's just got his hands in his pockets looking around, and he put Charvarius Ward in the cornerback room. It's like that's basically what it feels like from the outside looking in. So I'll tell you what, Lou Anarumo, he's got his work cut out for him. He really does, because that scheme is very reliant on defensive backs. So that's the first thing that we have to get out of here. Absolutely brutal, devastating injury, but we hope that Justin Wally makes a very speedy recovery as fast as you can from a torn ACL. Those injuries are not career-ending like they used to be. So, I'm sure he'll be back better than ever next season and rehabbing everything. So the next one we're going to get to is practice updates. These don't have to take too long. We'll start with Saturday. Saturday, basically, it would have been Sunday, excuse me. Sunday, Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones, they both boasted pretty solid days. I mean, Richardson looked better, though, than Daniel Jones did. And, Noah, we can we'll get into the insides and outs of the practices, which are starting to kind of blur together, especially as they wind down. But, man, it's one of those things where I think that I can speak for all Colts fans. And we're analysts, and we have to be, we have to just give the news from our point of view. I'll give it from my point of view. This offense is going to be so much more exciting to watch if it's not Daniel Jones. Okay. I mean, I've seen Jones in camp. He doesn't really take deep shots. If he does, it's like only if the guy he's got incredible separation. Richardson just seems more dynamic. The offense suits him better. You might be safer picking Jones. You might have more consistency. I don't know if you'd even win more games with him, but What are your thoughts on Anthony Richardson? I know that today, Noah Compton from Blue Stamp, I believe it's Blue Stampede. He mentioned, that Anthony Richardson had probably his best 11 on 11 performance, and this is just reading a tweet.
Yeah.
He kicked off the potential last 11 on 11 session of the day with a beautiful find to Tyler Warren up the right sideline. He hit Michael Pittman Jr. on a quick slant before connecting with Warren again for the touchdown. He found a nice soft spot in the zone. Then he ran one in. I mean, that's the kind of Anthony Richardson you want to see, and that's how he's going to beat out Daniel Jones, is doing stuff like that.
Yeah, and I don't think people are going to really argue with you if you say to Anthony Richardson has had a really good training camp in terms of these practices that are going on. He's going out and he's showing some improvement in some of those key areas that we felt like he needed to improve on coming into this season, just being a little bit more accurate in the short and intermediate, less interceptions. I mean, just both quarterbacks combined throughout training camp in those team periods, I think have thrown like 3 combined interceptions. 7-on-7 is a different story, but that's adding quite a bit of volume. But yeah, just some things that you wanted him to get better at. He's shown, but he's shown those in practice. We'll obviously get to the games. We want to see that in the game. He didn't have a ton of opportunity to do that, clearly, based on what happened this past week. So hopefully going forward, we actually see some of those improvements against some live bullets when it comes to the next 2 preseason games that are coming out.
Yeah, and Jones, the thing is, the consensus was that he's like taking that, especially when Richardson was hurt, that he was just, getting a big lead on Richardson. Yeah. And I have drug Richardson through the mud at times. I really have. I've said that, he's not accurate. He's not staying healthy, and the guy, we'll get to it, but, the pinky injury on Thursday, he had it heavily wrapped up. Still goes out there, puts up a pretty nice performance in training camp, and then he does this today.
Yeah,
things are starting to at least line up, and you don't have to be this, 65, 68, 69% quarterback with your completions if you're Richardson in this offense. You just need to be better than like 55, 56%. Yeah. Even if he's flirting with 60, man, you'll probably take that. You know what I mean? So tell me what you think about this assessment. I think that on each end, I think Richardson does have the lead. They asked Steichen about it on Sunday, and like I said, guys, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but Shane Steichen will give you nothing ever for no reason. He will never tell. They asked him about Jalen Jones and Juju Brents. Noah, he said, I don't have an update. He's not going to give you a damn thing. He said that it's neck and neck. They're both battling. It's like, I personally think Richardson's got the lead in this. I think they want him to start. But also, Daniel Jones has not at any point, outside of maybe one practice where Richardson really struggled, he's not separated himself.
Yeah.
He's not got a clear lead where all of the analysts and media like us are like, oh, yeah, it's Daniel Jones. And if you are, you're probably not watching the practices. So, in your opinion, who do you think has the lead here? And do you think Jones has done really anything to solidify himself as the starter this year?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think having the lead is relative. I think if you were going to go out and field a team to play week 1, I think Daniel Jones is probably the starter today. I don't really expect that to be the case when we go into week 1. If I had to make my prediction, I think Anthony Richardson probably will start week 1, but I think the safer choice right now is Daniel Jones. It's rough. I know the Colts desperately, they want somebody to take a hold of the quarterback competition and run away with it. But as well as Anthony Richardson was doing in training camp practices, he's had enough of them that were a little bit shaky to not make you feel 100% confident. And if you feel like he gave you a lead going into, or had a slight lead going into week 1 of the preseason, that blown blitz pickup or that blown protection assignment that he just missed and got that injury on, I mean, that's just takes him right back down. I mean, he's constantly working his way up past Daniel Jones, and Daniel Jones is the embodiment of steadiness, but not anything. He's never gonna wow you.
High floor, low ceiling.
Yeah, really low ceiling. And I mean, I don't know if the floor is that high either, but it's but I mean, the floor with Anthony Richardson is just you're dropping down to hell if you don't have a floor at all with Anthony Richardson. So, but the ceiling's good too. But I mean, even the ceiling with him, I think you haven't seen it for a whole game. So like you'll get like plays here and there where the ceiling's crazy with Anthony Richardson. So yeah, they want somebody for sure to separate themselves. They just haven't. And it's so hard when you're dealing with those two different types of guys where you've just got Daniel Jones inching along, pushing the offense forward really, really slowly. And then you have Anthony Richardson one step forward, one step back. I'd say 2 forward and 2 back, but I don't think he's made any progress, frankly, from when this season began, or when the offseason program began. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure they want somebody to come out in these next 2 preseason games. They came out, they said they were going to flip that playing time plan that they had originally because of the injury that happened to Anthony Richardson so early. We'll see Daniel Jones for a brief amount of time getting the start this upcoming preseason game. Then we'll see Anthony Richardson for around a quarter and a half, I think Shane Steichen said. So we'll get a more extended look at him as long as everything goes well and he doesn't take another massive hit like he did last week. So this is the time to separate you. I mean, training camp practices are all but done. I think they've got this one. Actually, I think they might have one more. I think just the joint practice with the Packers on Thursday might be their last training camp practice at Grand Park, and then they just go back to their facility on 56th Street. So yeah, I think that your time in practice is to separate yourselves. I mean, that joint practice is going to carry a lot of weight, and then those preseason games are really going to tell you everything you need to know to make that decision. And hopefully one of these two makes it clear for them, whether it's Anthony Richardson shows some consistency while still showing some flashes, or whether it's Daniel Jones actually giving you some flashes and pushing the ball downfield a little bit more. I think we had a comment here asking about the regression of the arm strength from Daniel Jones. I'm not sure if that's the case, but there's definitely been a regression in terms of his willingness to push the ball downfield since his career has started. Early on in his career, he was definitely a more aggressive quarterback. Slowly that has declined, and he's kind of your Gardner Minshew type at this point in his career where he's not going to push the ball downfield that much. And I think in order for him to beat Anthony Richardson out, as long as Anthony Richardson doesn't take himself out of the competition, he needs to push it a little bit more and show some more flashes.
Yeah. And, Paul, to give you an idea here, let me bust out the old calculator. All right. So Daniel Jones has 14,582 passing yards in his career. You divide that by his 1,437 pass completions. It's barely over 10 yards for completion. Yeah. So he is notoriously boring as hell. All right. The guy does not push the ball. He doesn't take risks. He just doesn't. And even in his best season, 2022, guy only had 15 touchdown passes, but he had 317 completions, 3,205 for his passing yards. Let's do the math on that. The exact same average as his career, 10.1.
Yeah.
All right. So you will never, ever see, even if Daniel Jones had arm strength, he doesn't do it. And I think our own Jake Arthur has said that's the one thing that you'll kind of get a personality response from Daniel Jones on, is if you ask him about his deep passes. Well, I don't know if Daniel Jones has a little bit of, butt hurt when it comes to getting asked that, but proof's in the pudding, man. I mean, in 2023, for God's sakes, he had 108 completions for 909 yards. That's basically like a little over 9 yards per completion, which just means that you're just not taking risks. And he still threw 6 picks to 2 touchdowns. So, I mean, Daniel Jones is I'd say Minshew's a bigger risk taker than he is. Yeah. So, but yeah, that's something to keep an eye on. I mean, Daniel Jones really isn't going to be a guy that's ever going to wow you. But I will say that to highlight a couple other guys in camp here, Leatu Latu, he's just continuing to show that he could be a guy that is going to be a star. Now, training camp is tough because you're playing against your own guys. And after a few practices, ladies and gentlemen, everyone picks up on calls and audibles and stuff like that. That's why these guys are itching to play someone in a different jersey. But also guys like DJ Giddens has shown out at times.
Yeah.
Tyler Warren is looking good. Hey, we'll stick with the tight end room here. Will Mallory looks like he deserves, and he honestly deserves, a roster spot.
Yeah.
He's looking great. Alec Pierce has been probably the most impactful receiver. There's been times where Anthony Gould has been looking good. I mean, it's encouraging. Sam Womack's made some plays.
Yeah.
It's encouraging, Noah, because there's been so much attention on the quarterback position. that people forget to watch other people in training camp.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So just, is there a certain player that I know that you haven't been to one, but is there a certain player that just through following the news or checking out any videos that has stood out to you that isn't named Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones?
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a few that you can go over. I think in these last few practices, some of those depth running backs have shown some tendency or some ability to have some explosive plays in them. I think
Ulysses Bentley's had a couple plays.
Yeah, everyone's always asking about Ulysses Bentley for some reason. Then we've got Tyler Goodson. I thought also had a really good day today. Will Mallory, for sure. I think you mentioned him. Just showing up and deserving a roster spot. I'm not sure there's a question or a competition anymore at this point in terms of who you're keeping, Will Mallory or Jelani Woods. I think it's pretty clear it's Will Mallory. So you're probably keeping those 4 tight ends of Alley Cox, Ogletree, Warren, and Mallory. I think that seems pretty clear cut. Whereas when we came into camp, I felt like that was somewhere where I thought you would have to make a tough choice. And it doesn't seem like Jelani Woods, while he's been healthy and out on the field and participating and getting some catches here and there, he hasn't done enough to really outseat. Yeah, I guess Will Mallory would be the guy that's his direct competition. Will Mallory's just had an awesome camp altogether and been super reliable all throughout camp. Tanner Bordellini, I think, is like taking the lead there at center, and I don't think there's a ton of question there. I think that was probably the way they were going to go anyway, but with Danny Pinter missing some time lately, I think it just seems even more so that he's taking the lead there. Spencer Schrader, a special teams coach, Brian Mason, came out and said he was the front runner for that kicking competition job, which is, I think, rare to have a coach come out and in the middle of a position battle and say who the front runner is. Shane Steichen absolutely won't do that with the quarterback position. He wouldn't do that if you asked him about center either. So yeah, it's interesting to have the special teams coordinator come out and say Spencer Schrader is probably in the lead for that kicking spot, which I think is a really good thing because you cut Matt Gay while Spencer Schrader was on the roster and Maddox Trujillo was not. So you had to believe in him at some point. So I'm glad that isn't all out the window at this point. They're still believing in Spencer Schrader to get the job done. Then some of these depth corners that are kind of being thrust into some of these roles that they probably didn't expect they were going to be in when they came into training camp. Undrafted guy Jonathan Edwards playing on the outside. Alex Johnson, who was on the practice squad last year, is a guy who plays the slot, who can play outside as well. I mean, Chris Lamons is coming in, having to play some nickel, a guy who was on the team last year and then cut throughout. And then once these injuries started coming in, they brought him back in. There's some of those young guys you mentioned, Sam Womack, but yeah, Stats Matt, I think, threw out the name that a lot of people want to talk about. And that's Hunter Wohler, who's a 7th round pick out of Wisconsin, who's playing safety or linebacker. I think they're going to try to do both, but right now with Nick Cross out with injury, he's stepped in as a starter, a 7th round pick, just stepping in as a starter. Just reading the starting lineup in the secondary for today's practice was interesting to me, going through the names where it's Charvarius Ward, Jonathan Edwards, Alex Johnson, Cam Bynum, and Hunter Wohler. There's 2 undrafted free agents and a 7th round pick in there mixed in with your 2 free agent signings. So I thought that was a funny lineup that came out today, but these are guys that are getting put in some pretty serious spots. And Wohler's a guy who I think has impressed at linebacker and has impressed at safety. Special teams, we kind of thought when they drafted him was going to be his primary role, but just maybe due to injuries, he's going to force his way onto the field.
Yeah, and it's just been very encouraging just to see some of these guys step into the role. It's not been easy. There's a lot of injuries all over the team, but especially, I don't know if there's anything worse right now than the defensive backs. I mean, they have gotten their asses kicked by injuries. So, but that's training camp. We got a game to talk about.
Yeah,
we actually have a game to talk about here. So we're going to divvy this up. We'll start actually with the negative. Okay. So Noah came up with a brilliant idea to kind of talk about the good and the bad. I wrote an article I do after every single game called The Risers and Fallers, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a player. It can be a group, an aspect like drops, lack of pressure, all sorts of different things that we can address here. But we'll go ahead and start with the bad. So, Noah, what really stands out to me, and we'll just get this out of the way.
Yeah.
Is I know that we praised Richardson. And Zach Hicks mentioned this on the Locked On Colts podcast I think he had Derek Schultz, and I can't remember who else was on there. But Zach Hicks said, it's a finger injury. And he might not have necessarily been able to avoid the hit after the ball was snapped.
Yeah.
But it just keeps happening to Richardson, where it's a back, it's a concussion, it's a shoulder, just everything. It just seems like Richardson is a pincushion with the pins getting put in this guy constantly. Also, like you mentioned, and people need to hear this. I know that we will praise Anthony. We'll also talk about what he needs to do better. I mean, like I said, I have drugged this dude through the mud at times. Okay, but it's absolutely 100% his fault that he got destroyed by David Ojabo. Yeah. All right, you look at the film; they left him open and unblocked on purpose. And his read, it was hot. He's supposed to dump it off or hit the out. And he stuck to just the left side of the field. Yeah. He knew it was there. He should have known it was there. And that's a concern because he got himself hurt. Not only did he not make the read or look over there at all, but he just, as soon as the ball was snapped, you just look at him, he's just locked to the left side of the field. So that's the bad for Richardson. He barely played. He needs all the reps he can get. He got hurt again. And it is concerning that I know he's young. I know he doesn't have a lot of experience, but he's supposed to have all these mental reps. And you didn't make, no offense, one of the easiest reads a professional quarterback is supposed to make pre-snap.
Yeah. And you talk about mental reps. I feel like that rep was 100% mental is what went wrong with him. He just didn't even consider the fact that Ojabo might be coming there. I think there were clues after the snap also when you see the defensive end on the other side of the ball dropping back into coverage. I think that should throw up a flag for you that maybe you should take a look on the other side and make sure somebody's not coming because it's a good chance that they are.
You're making this call, dude.
Yeah.
We're making this call.
Yeah. So it's disappointing in the way that you mentioned. Yeah, one, he needs all the reps he can get. We wanted to see him make some progress in this competition, see if he could pull away from Daniel Jones and kind of continue to build on those things that he was doing in training camp. But all these days that he's having good training camp practices, they don't have live bullets coming at him in the form of David Ojabo sprinting at you untouched. Like that's not a threat for you in training camp. So that lets you to sit back and kind of relax and focus on the reads that you're making down the field. And it seemed like Anthony Richardson was just playing another training camp rep there when he was getting hit by David Ojabo because he was sitting there all too relaxed in the pocket, looking over at the left side of the field, not considering what could be coming from the right-hand side. Just rough to see. I'm glad that lucky that he escaped it with a dislocated pinky, and that was it. They popped it back in. He's back at practice the next practice. I mean, that's incredibly lucky for a guy with the injury history that he has. And just as clean of a hit as that was from as large and athletic of a human as David Ojabo is, that could have spelled probably the end to his training camp and into the early part of his season at minimum. If you're looking a little bit less lucky than Anthony Richardson was. So yeah, glad that he was on the field, but yeah, totally avoidable. You can say all the personnel that was in with him, maybe there's some backups that shouldn't have been on the field or shouldn't be in there. If you're playing Anthony Richardson, want to get a real look at him, then play him with the ones. There was obviously a lot of starters for the Colts who were resting just because I think they got a good look with him at joint practices, but it didn't matter who was on the field with him on that play right there. There's nobody that was going to make that call for him. That was Anthony Richardson's responsibility to make that call. And yeah, he's young, but year 3, you need to be able to make that pass protection call. And I know, I've seen threads of this happening to other quarterbacks around there, but these are other quarterbacks that you're not as worried about the injury history with. Anthony Richardson has not been able to stay on the field. You want to avoid any unnecessary hits if you can, and that one was totally avoidable and totally not avoided.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the clip right now, and okay, so A.D. Mitchell actually runs a quick hitch. DJ Giddens runs a flat.
Yeah.
All right, you have 2 hot reads right there. And Ojabo hits him. It's not funny, but he hits Richardson so hard. This is a 250-pound quarterback.
Yeah.
He hits him so hard, both feet left the ground, midair. Like you said, Richardson's lucky that he because he wasn't able to brace for it. He
Yeah.
didn't feel it. Nothing. Just absolutely got mollywopped by a freaking unit of a man.
Yeah. And
So
props to Ojabo there for keeping that hit clean too, not leading with the crown of his helmet, just barreling into him as safe of a way as you can barrel into a player at that speed. So yeah, I mean that definitely could have been a lot worse.
yeah, and one more thing, I know that Chase Daniel, he got criticized because it's like, oh well, hey, you've barely played any football and blah blah blah. You're a backup. He's a professional quarterback, okay, and he said Anthony Richardson is hot. It's clear as day. Throw the flat route to the running back and live to fight another day. That is a professional quarterback you're hearing that from. So guess what? It's on Richardson. And so, but that's one of the bad. I will say something else that I had, at least in my piece, was Daniel Jones in that game. So Daniel Jones, he might have been able to see more action, but he was 10 of 21 for 144 yards. And he did get sacked, just like Richardson. He got sacked for a yard more. Jones didn't have the best showing, and he had an opportunity to get more snaps with Richardson exiting early. I think that it's his first game with a new team. He's not in a training camp practice. He's trying to integrate with these guys that he's only practiced with against his own defense, right? So you're not expecting him to go out there and light the world on fire. But, I mean, he had a 70.3 rating. Richardson, I know he only played like a handful of snaps, but his was 86.8.
Yeah.
So, like, Jones didn't really do anything too crazy. But what did you think of his performance? I thought that there were times he hit some nice throws. There was one where he was running to the opposite side of his body, and he almost flicked it. It was a beautiful, beautiful play from DJ. But I think he is who he is, man. He's a low-risk quarterback that just isn't going to blow you away probably ever.
Yeah, I think it's fair to chart that under the bad if what you're expecting is a starting level quarterback. But at this point, Daniel Jones doesn't seem to be that. I think it was by and large a pretty average game from Daniel Jones. I know his completion percentage didn't look that good. I think there were some drops definitely there that hurt it.
Oh, yeah, lots of drops.
Yeah, so there was – I don't know if I would necessarily throw him on the side of bad, but I would definitely say if you're expecting somebody to come in when Anthony Richardson goes down and your offense to continue running the same way, it's probably not going to happen. You're going to do things a little bit differently. I think that throw, I don't know if this is the one that you were thinking of where he flicks it to Ashton Dulin, and Dulin kind of catches it and then spins away from a defender immediately. I think that was kind of Dulin bailing Jones out there. I think that was maybe going to be a pick in another game where you have some starting level players in the secondary. So maybe that was the number one play that a lot of people thought Daniel Jones made in a real game. I'm not sure if that's a play that actually does get made, but it's preseason, so we'll say that was a completion. Good on him. I'm glad he was pushing it a little bit and taking a risk instead of doing the checkdowns. It's that time to do it. Anthony Richardson went down so early, and Daniel Jones got in there on the field with, I mean, as many of the starters as you were going to have at that point in the game between the two teams, which wasn't a lot. But I think he had the opportunity there to separate himself a little bit in the competition. But it seems like both of the Colts quarterbacks are allergic to really taking a hold of those chances and moving forward with the competition.
I'm watching the clip right now. Absolutely, that's the play that I'm talking about. Yeah.
I mean, good throw, but I think, if with some other defenders on the field, I think that's a play that you don't get bailed out by your receiver all the time on.
Yeah, and Dulin might not be this otherworldly receiver, but he's a veteran. He's enough of a veteran that he knows, like, oh crap, I got to bail on my route and I got to follow Jones as he's going to the opposite side of his throwing arm. So, you watch that clip. I think you can give – everyone's going to talk about the throw, but I think you need to give more props to Ashton Dulin for getting Jones out of that situation. But, and then one more that I personally had was the special teams, the return defense. It was disgusting how bad it was. So I'll just read my first paragraph that pretty much sums up everything. Special teams coordinator Brian Mason's troops looked awful against Baltimore's return scheme. Indianapolis allowed 156 kick return and 109 punt return yards. totaling 265. That's how you lose close games. This was at its worst when the Ravens return man LaJohntay Wester returned a punt for 87 yards. It just seemed like no one could tackle. This is a spot on the game plan that the Colts emphasize so heavily. They value special teams players. That's why guys like Doolin have just been able to continuously get contracts and stay on this team. Tyler Goodson is making himself more known as a special teamer than a running back. So what do you think of this? I mean, I know it's the preseason, but these are guys earn positions. Yeah. Guys like Zaire did it. There's been guys that have gotten their bread and become legitimate starters from just being on special teams. What do you make of that? Because I don't mean to be critical, but that's a disgusting performance from your return defense. It really is.
Yeah, and maybe that's not the team that you're trotting out there week one once that roster is trimmed down. It's a little more efficient. Fair. You've probably got some guys who are going to be a little bit more experienced, have a little bit more discipline, and show, frankly, a little bit more fight on those tackle attempts. But yeah, I mean, this is training camp. This is preseason football. You've got guys who are fighting to make the roster, and this is where you're going to do it. And the lane integrity, I'm sure special teams coach Brian Mason that we brought up earlier is going to be drilling those guys on the lane integrity on those kick returns. And I'm not sure where the lanes got messed up on that punt return, but the tackling was just plain awful on that punt return that Wester took back for the touchdown. So yeah, that's an area you just want to see a lot more fight from these back end of the roster guys that need to make an impression somewhere, and that's where they're going to get the biggest opportunity to do it is a special team. So yeah, I would expect them to play with a little bit more fire coming into this next week. So I'm sure they got chewed out as much as they can get chewed out, and if they, I mean, frankly, if they don't respond to that, then that's when you move on from some of these 85 to 90 players on your roster and bring in some new faces and new bodies that want to compete for that job. But yeah, I think I wouldn't expect it to be that bad in the regular season, because I think you'll get some other players in those units that'll be able to handle that a little bit better, but definitely want to see an improvement going into weeks 2 and 3 there.
Yeah, and it is the preseason. You can't put too much stock into this, especially with special teams, because like we've talked about, there's the defense and offense, there's going to be competition to make a roster spot. But if you're a fringe guy on that 53-man, special teams is where you get your freaking position. So it's imperative that your special teams works well. And I will give Brian Mason credit. Not only is he a good special teams coordinator, but he is probably one of the realest OGs when it comes to interviews. You ask that guy a question, he is going to give you a real life answer. And so, he was breaking down the percentages of what Spencer Schrader and what Max Trujillo had hit, who's ahead. I mean, he is a great interview. But yeah, I think that he personally, I remember putting out a tweet that, he's got to be pissed that his special teams look so bad. Honestly, I know it's preseason, but it was a nationally televised game still. So, the other thing that I will mention is something that Paul brings up here. The Ravens should be ashamed of Devin Leary and Cooper Rush because they combined for a miraculous 5 of 16 for 49 yards and 2 picks, 2 sacks, not a dang thing other than that to show for it. Yet they ran that football 42 times for 177 yards for 4.2 per clip. 18 of those carries went to Dearness Johnson, who any given Sunday can be a fantasy darling for you. And 2 scores on the ground with a long of 23 on the day from Keaton Mitchell. I mean, again, it's preseason, but you feel like if the passing game is struggling that much, the run defense would be able to almost zone in on that, load the box, really crack these running backs. It just didn't seem to happen. So do you think that – because last year we were talking about the defense just being an overall concern, right, against the pass. But there's been times where the run defense is atrocious, and if you can't stop the run, you open up yourself for a lot of possibilities to get hurt. Yeah. What did you think of the run defense? Because honestly, given how bad the passing attack was, I think the run defense could have been better.
Yeah, I'm glad Paul brought this up because I did want to bring this up as my last thing to talk about here in the bad section. And there's a multitude of reasons why the run defense didn't look that good. We brought that up when we were bringing up special teams and the lack of tackling, which I think was a huge problem last season with Gus Bradley's unit and just not wrapping up and making tackles. A ton of missed tackles at the linebacker position in the secondary. I think week one of the preseason, maybe this is the time you're going to see it because the Colts haven't had a ton of live tackling action. This is the first live tackling they've really done. So you hope that improves. But yeah, guys like Sam Womack, Rodney Thomas on the back end, guys that struggled to tackle last year, still having those struggles here in preseason week one. I think Hunter Wohler did some good things, but I thought he had some troubles tackling. Austin Ajayke, Cameron McGrone. I'm not sure if their tackling was so much the issue, but when they were in the game, their run fits were pretty rough, getting in the right spot. Darrell and Chami, Isaiah Land holding the edge in run defense, I thought was rough too. I mean, just all three levels, there were ways that the run defense could have improved. And I mean, yeah, those run fits, you're hoping for some more. You see out of guys, especially a guy like Cameron McGrone, who might be starting or get challenging for some starting reps even coming into week one. I thought the linebackers looked pretty good in pass defense. Guys that we maybe didn't expect to like primarily be these pass coverage linebackers. Joe Bocci, especially, that pick was really cool to see him going out there and continue off those plays that he was making in training camp and get one in the preseason. But yeah, I mean, just the run defense from all of these depth linebackers, I think was a little bit concerning. And then, yeah, piling that on with the tackling uncertainty that you have in the back end that carried over from this past season, you really hope you see that get cleaned up in these next 2 weeks before you enter week one.
Yeah, I mean, dear God, if you're missing tackles, against the ground attack like the Colts did last year, you're just gonna lose. You're gonna lose a lot of football games, and when you are able to just crack a defense constantly over again, imagine. I know it's preseason, but imagine if it was Derrick Henry. Imagine if Derrick Henry was in there. I mean, you'd have a 200-yard rushing performance on your hands. If you had him in fantasy, you'd be having a day. So, I mean, Indianapolis, man, they have weirdly struggled with tackling, and now you got a new coordinator. And I'll end with this before we get to the good. There is good. Don't worry. It's just, you got to criticize these guys. These guys are millionaire professionals playing the game we cover and that all the fans love and we love. You got to hit them hard with the facts, and they sucked at tackling. But Paul Wilson mentioned something here, and I remember asking Lou Anarumo about Joe Bocci. Lou Anarumo is a no-nonsense guy. I think that he's going to be good for this team. But since his defense was full of poor tackling also, just saying, Lou isn't exactly coming into Indy with much momentum. The one saving grace for Lou Anarumo, Paul, is outside of Trey Hendrickson, there wasn't really much there. Like in Cincinnati, he has way more to work with this year. Even with all these injuries at the cornerback room, he has more to use. But yeah, I mean, hey, if you can't tackle, you're just going to lose games. So, but hey, guys, guess what? There is good to talk about. There's actually good things to talk about in this game. Before I even get to the things that I wrote about, two guys stood out to me in the ground attack for the Colts, and that was Ulysses Bentley IV and Khalil Herbert, who combined for 14 carries for 64 yards. Khalil had 4.1 a carry. He had a score on the ground, a long of 17. Ulysses Bentley, this is what's impressive to me. He was 7 carries for 35 yards, but a long of only 10, which means that his other 6 carries were for like 4.1 yards per tote. That's pretty encouraging. I know, again, we have to continue to emphasize it's just the preseason, but Ulysses Bentley was playing guys on his level. And it's a loaded running back room, but you really can't have enough depth in a room like that. What do you think of these two? Because DJ Giddens, man, he was 6 carries for 17 yards.
Yeah.
Khalil Herbert outperformed him. He really did.
Yeah. I thought it was a little bit surprising when that first unofficial depth chart came out and Khalil Herbert was listed as the 4th running back on the roster.
That was crazy to me.
Because I think going into training camp, we expected him to be like kind of that favorite for RB2 and kind of challenging DJ Giddens. Where it seems like Tyler Goodson is kind of that clear cut RB2 right now, and Khalil Herbert's really battling with guys like Ulysses Bentley for these reps here in the preseason. So yeah, I'm glad that Herbert went out there. I mean, he's a guy who has produced in the NFL. You hope when he gets out there with the preseason against some of these guys, he looks like a tier above some of these guys that he's out there on the field with, and I think he did. Maybe his numbers would have looked a little bit more similar to DJ Giddens if he was in there earlier in the game. DJ Giddens also a guy I think is going to come along. I'm not too worried about his rushing capability. I think this is week 1 of the preseason for a rookie. I'm not reading too much into that really with any of these guys, these names that we're going to throw out. I mentioned Hunter Wohler having a rough game tackling. I'm not going to hold that against Hunter Wohler being his first preseason game in the NFL and his first live tackling session in the NFL, really. So, yeah, I mean, just got to wait on a lot of these guys. But, yeah, Ulysses Bentley, fun to watch. Definitely all these people that are throwing down comments after our show is over about how we didn't talk about Ulysses Bentley enough are I mean, maybe we're going to have to start talking about him a little bit more if he turns out some more performances like that in these next 2 weeks. And I think a roster spot, man, that's really tough when you're looking at that room right there and how many guys you think they're going to keep, but definitely very much in play for a chance of that practice squad spot or maybe getting claimed elsewhere as the preseason moves along.
Yeah, and the people trying to say that we don't talk about Ulysses, Bentley the fourth very often. What do you got now? We just started off the good with Ulysses Bentley the fourth. Yeah. So hey, there you go. This is another good. Is a guy that we've been talking about honestly constantly. Led the team in tackles with 9. That's Hunter Wohler.
Yeah,
we have to talk about, and we'll make it brief. But my goodness, man. There was so much criticism. Well, you haven't signed a linebacker, right? You haven't signed a safety. You haven't re-signed Julian Blackmon. Tyrann Mathieu retires. New Orleans is like, okay, bet. And they go get Julian Blackmon.
Yeah.
Hunter Wohler had 9 tackles, 6 of those by himself. Now, that's not necessary. There was nothing else. But Hunter Wohler is just, I personally think for a 7th-round pick, what he's done in training camp, what he's done in the joint practice, he had 2 interceptions, 1 at safety, 1 at linebacker, first and second team.
Yeah.
I mean, against the Ravens in their joint practice, this dude's just balling out. Like, he's just literally going out there and making plays constantly. He's got a good head on his shoulders. Lou Anarumo loves him. He's also insanely physical, really embodies a safety that could take your head off. What are your thoughts on Hunter Wohler? I personally think that right now, I know it's pretty early to say this, but he looks like a guy who's kind of smashing that 7th-round tag.
Yeah, and this is 2 guys back there at safety, and Rodney Thomas and Hunter Wohler, who are your primary backups at safety at this point, who are former 7th-round picks. So, I mean, they're kind of trusting their evaluations there late and getting some guys who can outperform that draft position a little bit. We'll see how it turns out for Rodney Thomas. But, yeah, Hunter Wohler, even outside of safety, which I think is the spot that primarily they expected him to play the most, and based off of injuries and just kind of the pecking order in the depth chart is probably his most likely way to get on the field. We saw Nick Cross go down or sit out a couple of practices here with a nagging injury here at safety, and Hunter Wohler's the guy that's getting thrown in there in the first team. And I mean, while they don't have a ton of other guys that could really take those reps there at safety, I think Hunter Wohler, as much as he could have, has earned it with the play that he's had in training camp in this preseason game to get on there as the first chance guy off the bench for that position. And then in terms of being able to swap in at linebacker, I think linebacker is actually looking a lot deeper than we imagined it was going to be in terms of rotation for those guys. So maybe it's a little bit harder for him to get on the field that way, but I mean, a lot like how we talked about Justin Wally, how they were kind of looking for excuses to get him on the field. I think maybe we can start having those conversations about Hunter Wohler, not where they're going to forgo some of these other starters that are on the roster to get him out there. But I mean, if there's an opportunity for one of these spots at linebacker or safety and someone goes down, I think they're going to try to get Hunter Wohler out there if they can, just to see if that playmaking ability carries over. Excited to watch him. I know he's going to be a factor on special teams. It seems like his roster spot's pretty secure, already being the next man up at that strong safety spot, let alone his versatility to play there at linebacker and special teams. So, yeah, I'm excited to keep watching him go throughout the preseason. Definitely smashing that 7th-round pick. I think when you're a 7th-round pick, you come into the team Just really hoping to make a roster spot. It's when you get to draft picks, 7th round picks, you would assume they have a leg up on these undrafted free agents that you bring in, but really the hit rate on 7th round picks for a lot of teams, a lot of times they just don't even make the roster. So to go beyond that and really be that second guy on the depth chart at strong safety and getting to fill in for some starting reps is huge for Wohler here.
Yeah, and Paul, I didn't forget your super chat here. Feed me some good, fellas. We need it on a Monday. Well, that is exactly what we've got for you. And we've actually got more good than bad, which, hey, we like to be critical on this show. Like I said, these guys need it. They need it. So, another guy that I have to talk about that I actually asked Lou Anarumo about is Joe Bocci.
Yeah,
dude, I even put in my notes and in my article, initially seen as a pure backup linebacker, he has looked fantastic operating in Anarumo's scheme. He went out there, got another interception, but this time it was in a preseason game, and he has multiple picks during training camp, and he's honestly looked like he has been outperforming Jalen Carlisle. No one has said anything about Jalen Carlisle. Okay, no one. They've been talking about freaking Joe Bocci and maybe Cam McGrone. So I personally think so. I even asked Anarumo, I said, what have you seen from Joe Bocci? He honestly looks like a starting level linebacker.
Yeah.
And, he just gushed about it. He even said that he wore the green dot for us in Cincinnati at times. We won games with him wearing that. He wasn't just a rotational guy. He said he respects the hell out of him. He's always going to be in the right place more than the wrong.
Yeah.
What do you think about Joe Bocci? Because I really do think it might be a hot take right now. But I think he's been outperforming Jalen Carlisle. I do.
Yeah, I think much like I mentioned, if you go out tomorrow and play a game, I think Joe Bocci is probably the starter opposite Zaire Franklin, which is interesting because I thought kind of how it was working itself out is it seemed like Joe Bocci, you mentioned green dot guy, can be that signal caller on the interior of the defense, and was that in Cincinnati. So I kind of envisioned his role being that kind of next man up for Zaire Franklin. If Zaire Franklin goes down for any amount of time, you've got a guy you can trust in Joe Bocci that can go there. He was just kind of slotted in for me as that backup right behind Zaire Franklin. I didn't necessarily think his game would be as complimentary to Franklin's as it has been. Joe Bocci's been really good in pass coverage by all accounts in these 7-on-7 and 11-on-11 reps that they're getting in training camp. And then, to come away with that pick and be generally pretty solid outside of that pick, even outside of that pick in week 1 during live action in the preseason game. It seems like, that seems like a complimentary fix. You don't want Zaire Franklin to have to be that primary coverage linebacker. And maybe before this training camp, we would have imagined that would be the case if you have Joe Bocci in there, because we hadn't seen a ton from him defensively throughout his career to this point. But they list Cam McGrone right now as the starter at will. So I'm not even sure. We came into training camps with it's Zaire Franklin and Jalen Carlisle. That's just how it is. Jalen Carlisle, I think I mentioned this maybe a week or two ago about how he might be linebacker 4 right now. I think the further we get into training camp, the more that seems like that's just what it is. I think Joe Bocci is probably your starter right now if you play tomorrow, outside of or besides Zaire Franklin, and then Cameron McGrone's probably your next man up. And I think there's room for Jalen Carlisle to impress and kind of claw his way back into that. But I think it seems like Joe Bocci's just kind of running away with that spot right now.
Yeah. And hey, give credit to Joe Bocci because he was brought over here and nobody really even blinked an eye.
Yeah.
No one really cared. And all he's done is just go out there and the dude has just done nothing but play football. And he's played it well. So we'll make this one super brief. But Tyler Warren caught all 3 of his targets for 40 yards. He just looks like a tight end 1. He looks like the guy that is exactly who you drafted him to be. It doesn't really see. He honestly seems like a tight end that it doesn't matter who's under center. They're going to be able to find him because of his ability, especially in the short game. What did you think of Tyler Warren's performance? He caught all 3 of his targets, and by all accounts, he looked good. He really did.
Yeah. Not a ton to see just because of how little you're playing him here in the preseason, but I mean, it just carried over. There wasn't anything that you saw in preseason week 1 that you're like, okay, maybe this doesn't add up. And it just seems like he's the guy that everyone kind of thought he was going to be and hit the ground running. Quentin Nelson was raving about his work ethic after practice the other day, about making Quentin Nelson look bad in terms of work ethic, just the way that he's hitting the weight room after his long practice days. So, I mean, yeah, he came in as a culture setter. He's handling things in terms of the volume that he's getting, in terms of both the targets that he's getting and just the pure snap counts that he's getting, just handling that like he's a professional on day one, which is awesome to see. So no questions from him. I don't know how much more I need to see from him in preseason and training camp. Obviously, you want to see more because he's the shiny new toy, and you want to see all the versatile ways that Shane Steichen can use him. But you're also not going to show all the fun ways that you're going to be able to use Shane Steichen is not going to show all those fun ways you can use Tyler Warren in the preseason. So I think we really have a treat in store for us in week 1 when we can kind of unleash that and see kind of the full potential of what Tyler Warren can be in this offense. But yeah, no questions about what he is and what he's been so far, and fully expect him to carry that impact into the regular season.
Yeah, and we'll make this one super brief because we do have 2 massive updates to throw out here. But JT Tuimoloau, man, before exiting with a knee injury, he had 2 tackles for loss. He had a sack. He had a pass deflection. Dude was all over the field causing havoc. I think that if you're the Colts, you are incredibly happy with that being his initial NFL debut. Tell me a little bit about Tuimoloau, because just like the Wally pick, we kind of looked at this like, but dude, you have Samson Ebukam, you got Kwity Paye, you got Tyquan Lewis, you got Leatu Latu. What are you doing? This guy looks like he could potentially be a dog, and he's already a good run defender coming out of college.
Yeah, he's a guy that got a lot more snaps than I really thought he was going to get with the kind of these depth pieces you have at defensive end that I figured you'd want to see some more action from. I mean, he's a rookie, so give him all the action he can handle in the preseason, but obviously maybe that went a step a little bit too far coming out of the game with that injury there late. But yeah, happy to see him come on and make an impact early on in the preseason. I think a couple missed tackles there from him, but much like we've said with Hunter Wohler, I mean, first live tackling session of the NFL for him as well. So yeah, just want to see him. I mean, we weren't really worried about that when he came into the league. That wasn't like the sticking point. We knew that run defense was kind of going to be on point. He was going to be that strong side end for you. And we wanted to see him get to the passer. And I think that's what he showed a little bit here in preseason week 1. So we want to see that continue. I want to hear some reports, the joint practice that's going on Thursday with the Packers and these one-on-ones. I want to hear about him and Latu continuing to get after it and win their one-on-one reps. And I want to see him continue to get to the passer. Cause I mean, if you feel comfortable about a guy in his run defense, and then you add on that ability to get to the passer, you have a well-rounded defensive end. And that's pretty serious when you've got a guy in Kwity Paye who's kind of that role right in front of JTT, right, where he's that strong end and he's going to be that primary run defender and going to give you at least some production in pass rush. But if you've got a guy sitting waiting in the wings behind him that can give you similar production, then that makes you a little bit more comfortable, and that just spells good things for JTT's career in the long run.
Yeah, and it was just awesome to see the kid go out there and just start kicking ass right away. I'm excited to see what he's got ahead, but we're going to go ahead and get to these news and rumors real quick. We'll go ahead and start with Alec Pierce. So
can I do one more?
Oh, dude, absolutely.
I just want to throw the flag out there, and this one's going to be super quick. But we're all on Alex Johnson watch right now. I think he was the highest graded defender for the Colts defense. Normally it wouldn't really matter, but I mean, he was out there with the starters just out of necessity. Got that one-handed interception from the slot. I think he's a guy that could have versatility to play inside and outside, like Justin Wally kind of was. So it seems like right now he's that primary backup behind Kenny Moore, and maybe a guy that can fill out outside. When you have as many injuries in the cornerback room as the Colts do, you're really hoping for anything to turn out good. And at least Alex Johnson came through in that sense. So not much to say about Alex Johnson right now, except we're officially on watch from here on.
Yeah, not only did he have an incredible one-handed interception, which, by the way, people, it was on the sideline. and he was able to haul that thing in. He also had 2 passes defensed out of the 5 for the entire team. So Alex Johnson showed the Colts that he wants to play football, that he wants to actually get on the field. So that is absolutely number 39. Keep an eye on that number because Alex Johnson really did show out against the Ravens in that game. So I'm glad Noah was able to actually wedge that in. We'll go ahead and give a brief update here. So Alec Pierce did suffer a groin injury, which sucks for a guy that's a speedster and a guy that uses explosive ability to jump up and haul in 50-50 balls. But Jeremy Fowler from ESPN, per source, he did say that right now it's day-to-day. It does not appear serious.
Yeah.
That's encouraging, Noah, because, while Pierce's production probably depends on who starts at quarterback, not only has he probably been the most impressive receiver in camp, but, he's coming off an absolutely just torrid season where the guy led the NFL in yards per catch. He had 7 touchdowns. He led the team in touchdown receptions, receiving yards. You got to have Alec Pierce out there. And plus, he wants to show out. It's a contract year for him.
Yeah. Alec Pierce is a big deal. He's kind of that linchpin in the receiver room for where you go moving forward, and you start to have that conversation. It's a conversation that maybe is too early, but I think we've mentioned it before. If you're going forward, who are you paying? If you've got Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, and Alec Pierce, you're probably only going to be able to keep two out of those 3. So the Colts are going to have to make a decision at some point. Alec Pierce may just price himself out of the Colts price range, but you want to see him on the field as soon as you can, even if Daniel Jones is the quarterback and he's not going to push the envelope as much as Anthony Richardson is. You want that option when it comes up, because you don't even have to be that accurate when you're throwing deep balls to Alec Pierce. He's just proven consistently that he's going to be a good contested catch guy who can bail you out of some tough situations. So I want to see him on the field. Want to see him continue to round out that game in the short and intermediate areas of the field as well, because just based off of training camp practices and things we've seen from there, it seems like that was also the case.
Yeah, and so you definitely want Alec Pierce to be able to return from that. And remember, people, like training camp, they're not going to take any chances. They're going to be like, hey, no. If it's minor, come off the field, especially if you're an important player. The other guy is Kenny Moore II. You talk about the cornerback room. They can't catch a freaking break. It seems like over the last 2 weeks, this cornerback room has gone from yay to nay, like over no time frame at all. Of course, insider Stephen Holder, fantastic reporter, does his work very well for ESPN. Colts cornerback Kenny Moore II left practice Sunday with a knee injury that looked concerning. He did let out an audible yell. Details are still murky, but the early word is this is not a major injury. No info on the timeline, etc. yet. So obviously it's still super early. It could be anything, but it's encouraging because until Charvarius Ward proves that he is the best, that's your best cornerback.
Yeah.
That's the guy that is your best cornerback. If they were to lose Kenny Moore for even a couple of weeks, you're basically looking at Alex Johnson taking over that slot role.
Yeah, that's why we're on Alex Johnson watch. That despite the strong performance is one reason, but another reason today, he might need to play some significant snaps depending on what's going on with the rest of the corners in the room. Just decimated. Justin Wally. You could handle one of Justin Wally, Jalen Jones, and Juju Brents going down and making that competition a little bit cleaner. But all 3 of those, there's just no competition at all. You just had nobody for that spot. And then, Justin Wally we liked because he was kind of that primary guy who could play inside and out. Outside of him, until Alex Johnson came along this past preseason game, I don't know who we would have penciled in as the starters if you didn't have any of those 4 guys. 4 out of the 5 top corners on the roster are not playable right now. At the very least, at least that gives you a good look at some of these young guys, so you can kind of fill out the depth in that room, so who might be ready if you need to turn to them. Hopefully Sam Womack can put together some more consistent performances. I know he's flashed a little bit, but I'm sure he's going to get a lot of starting reps going into these next 2 preseason games, so you want to see him perform pretty consistently. But then, you've got Jonathan Edwards, Ladarius Tennyson in there at the nickel, Chris Lamons at the nickel, new signing BJ Mays, Duke Shelley, these new additions. You hope somebody comes out and shows you something that makes you feel a little bit more secure about these injuries, because if they don't, then you're just on your hands and knees and praying for some of these injured guys to come back onto the field.
Yeah, I mean, hey, keep an eye on Kenny Moore. Keep an eye on Alec Pierce. I personally think that the Colts are just playing super cautious.
Yeah.
But when it comes to that DB room, man, I mean, you got Juju, Jalen, and Kenny all hurt. And Justin Wally just exited the season with a
Yeah.
season-ending ACL tear. So
Yeah,
there's
at this
four prominent guys, poof, just
yeah,
gone.
at this point, just don't suit up Charvarius Ward again.
Yeah, just leave him on the
If you lose him, then I don't know what you do with that cornerback room. I think that's too big of a hurdle to overcome. So yeah, I still no update, like you mentioned, from Shane Steichen on the injuries to Jalen Jones and Juju Brents. Can't imagine they'll be here this next game against the Green Bay Packers on Saturday. So yeah, we're gonna get a long extended look at some of these other back end guys on that in that depth room.
Well, hey guys, thank you so much for joining us. We ran over like we always do, but don't forget to like the Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook, follow Indianapolis Colts on SI.com to see all of our written work. We work our asses off for that, so go check it out if you want up-to-date news. Then, of course, on X, we are at the very difficult to type out Colts on _SI tag. Subscribe to YouTube, Horseshoe Huddle, and click the bell to turn on the notifications. You know, guys don't want to miss anything. Anything can happen. It is the NFL. If you want to listen to the Horseshoe Huddle podcast, no problem. Noah always gets our stuff up on Apple, on Spotify, and wherever else you listen to podcasts. We are going to be right back here on Thursday to preview the Green Bay Packers matchup this Saturday at 1 p.m. Don't miss it, guys. We're getting so close to real football here. So stay tuned. Keep up to date with us. We can't wait to join you guys again on Thursday. And until then, have yourself a wonderful week. Kick back, relax if you can. And we'll join you all again here in a couple of days. See you later.